Sam Neill survived dinosaurs on screen for 3 decades. He beat a rare, aggressive blood cancer just months before he died. And then, in a hospital in Sydney, surrounded by the family he loved more than any film role, Sam Neill was gone. Sudden, unexpected, the world lost the man who made us believe, for 2 hours in 1990, that a paleontologist could be the calmest person on an island full of monsters. Steven Spielberg, the man who gave him that role, has now had to say goodbye to his friend. What did the legendary director say about the man behind Dr. Alan Grant? And what does Sam Neill's story really teach us about grace in life and in the very end? If you were sitting in a movie theater in the summer of 1993, you remember the moment. The gates of Jurassic Park swung open, that music swelled, and a weathered, quietly awestruck paleontologist named Alan Grant stood in front of a living, breathing Brachiosaurus for the first time. That was Sam Neill. And in that single expression on his face, wonder mixed with disbelief. He gave an entire generation one of the most unforgettable moments in movie history. But long before dinosaurs made him a household name, Sam Neill was already one of the most respected actors to come out of the Southern Hemisphere. Born in Northern Ireland in 1947, he moved to New Zealand at just 7 years old. And it was there, among the rolling hills of the South Island, that he built a life and a career that would eventually span more than 5 decades. He wasn't the flashy Hollywood type. He was thoughtful, understated, the kind of actor who made you believe every word he said, whether he was facing down a submarine crisis in The Hunt for Red October or standing beside Meryl Streep in Plenty. For those of us who grew up watching him, Sam Neill wasn't just a movie star. He felt like someone we knew. Sam Neill's path to stardom wasn't an overnight story. It was built one film at a time, over decades, with a patience that became his trademark. He got his start in 1977 in Sleeping Dogs, the first feature film made in New Zealand in more than 10 years. It was a modest beginning for a career that would eventually take him around the world. Throughout the late 1970s and 1980s, Neill became part of a wave of talent from Australia and New Zealand that took Hollywood by storm, alongside names like Mel Gibson, Russell Crowe, and Geoffrey Rush. He co-starred twice with Meryl Streep, first in Plenty, then in the haunting drama A Cry in the Dark, playing a pastor accused alongside his wife in one of Australia's most sensationalized trials. He teamed up with Nicole Kidman for the tense thriller Dead Calm in 1989, a role that helped launch them both to greater international attention. Then came 1993, and everything changed. Steven Spielberg cast him as Dr. Alan Grant in Jurassic Park, and Sam Neill became a name recognized in almost every corner of the world. He returned to the role twice more, in Jurassic Park 3 and 2022's Jurassic World Dominion, each time bringing the same steady warmth to a character audiences had grown to love over 30 years. But Neill never let himself be defined by just one franchise. He won acclaim in The Piano, played Thomas Jefferson in a CBS miniseries, took on Peaky Blinders' menacing Chester Campbell, and earned an Emmy nomination for the title role in the 1998 miniseries Merlin. In 2022, New Zealand honored him with a knighthood for his extraordinary contribution to film, a fitting tribute to a man who had spent 50 years telling stories that mattered. For most of his life, Sam Neill seemed almost indestructible. Always working, always curious, always ready for the next project, the next glass of wine from his own vineyard. But in 2022, everything shifted. He was diagnosed with stage 3 angioimmunoblastic T-cell lymphoma, a rare and aggressive form of blood cancer. He didn't hide from it. In 2023, Neill spoke openly to the world about his diagnosis and the difficult year of treatment that followed. He admitted, with the same honesty that had defined his entire career, that the year had brought real, dark moments. For a man who had spent his life playing calm, capable characters, this was a battle unfolding in real life, with no script and no guarantee of an ending. And then, something wonderful happened. Earlier this year, Sam Neill shared the news that so many of his fans had been hoping for. he was cancer-free. It felt like a victory lap after a brutal fight, a reason to celebrate a man who had faced something enormous and come out the other side. He kept working. He kept tending to his beloved vineyard in central Otago. He kept being, by every account, exactly who he had always been, which is what makes what happened next so hard to comprehend. On Monday, July 13, 2026, in Sydney, Australia, Sam Neill passed away. His family described his death as sudden and unexpected, and painfully, almost unbearably, they noted that he remained cancer-free when he died. The very illness he had fought so hard to overcome was not what took him in the end. What most people didn't know was just how much of Sam Neill's heart lived far away from film sets and red carpet. Behind the calm, collected screen persona was a man who spent much of his time on his farm in New Zealand's central Otago region, running an organic winery called Two Paddock that he started back in 1993, the very same year Jurassic Park made him famous. What most people didn't know was that Sam Neill had a playful habit of naming the animals on his farm after his Hollywood friends, sharing the results, often hilariously, on his social media. It was a small window into who he really was underneath the fame, a man who found more joy in ordinary life than in celebrity. What most people didn't know, too, was how deeply he cared about the land itself. Just this year, before his death, he released a short documentary opposing a proposed industrial gold mine in the very hills he called home. He wasn't just an actor who happened to live somewhere beautiful. He was a genuine steward of that place, willing to use his voice to protect it. And what many people are only now learning in the wake of his death is just how universally he was loved by the people who worked alongside him. Colleagues across decades and continents have described him the same way, again and again, gentlemanly, humble, deeply kind. Director Philip Noyce called him one of the most gentlemanly actors he had ever encountered, someone whose word was his contract in an industry not always known for that kind of integrity. That kind of consistency across 50 years and dozens of sets is not easy to find in Hollywood. It says something about who Sam Neill really was when the cameras weren't rolling. The tributes arrived almost immediately, and they came from every corner of his remarkable career. Steven Spielberg, the director who first cast him in Jurassic Park, released a heartfelt statement describing Neill as exceptionally collaborative and reflecting on how much of a stretch it had been for such a warm, loving father to play a character who acted put off by children. Spielberg said he adored making the Jurassic films with him, and that alongside Laura Dern and Jeff Goldblum, their on-screen family would never forget him. Laura Dern, his co-star and close friend for more than 30 years, called him her beloved lifetime friend, someone who showed her loyalty and love with the driest of wit. Jeff Goldblum shared a quiet, tender tribute of his own. Nicole Kidman, Cillian Murphy, Toni Collette, Bryce Dallas Howard, and so many others who had crossed paths with him over the decades spoke of his warmth, his humor, and his gentleness. Sam Neill is survived by his 4 children and 8 grandchildren, the family he so clearly cherished. His family thanked the staff at St. Vincent's Private Hospital in Sydney for their care and asked, gently, for privacy as they process a loss the world is still struggling to accept. Sam Neill's legacy will live on in the countless frames of film he left behind, in the wonder on his face as he first saw a dinosaur, in the quiet strength he brought to every role, in the steady, dependable presence he became for audiences across 5 decades. He never chased fame for its own sake. He simply did the work, film after film, and let his talent speak for itself. His memoir, Did I Ever Tell You This?, published in 2023, gave fans an intimate look into a life lived with humor and honesty, even in the face of illness. It remains, now, an even more precious, his own words, in his own voice, for the millions of people who loved him. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon called him one of the greats, noting that Neill helped build an entire film industry in a country that once barely had one. That may be the truest measure of his legacy, not just the movies he starred in, but the doors he opened for the generations of New Zealand and Australian actors and filmmakers who followed him. Somewhere in central Otago, his vineyard still stands, the wine still aging in barrels he once tended himself. It feels, somehow, like exactly the kind of legacy Sam Neill would have wanted. Not a monument, just something quiet and good, growing in the hills he loved. There is something profoundly moving about a man who fought so hard to beat cancer, who got to stand on the other side of that fight and say the words, "I'm cancer-free," only to be taken from us by something no one saw coming. It reminds us, in the most painful way possible, that we are never really promised tomorrow, not even after we've survived the unthinkable. But maybe that's exactly why Sam Neill's story resonates so deeply with so many of us. He didn't waste the time he was given. He worked. He loved his family. He tended his land. He made people laugh with photos of ferrets and farm animals named after movie stars. He stood up for the place he called home. And through it all, he remained, by every single account, from every person who ever worked with him, a genuinely kind and gentle man. So, if there's a lesson in his passing, maybe it's this: measure a life not by how long it lasted, but by how fully it was lived, and how many people were made better simply for having known you. Sam Neill leaves behind millions of fans who never met him, but somehow feel like they lost a friend. That is not a small thing. That is the rarest kind of legacy there is. If Sam Neill's warmth ever reached you, through Dr. Alan Grant, through the piano, or simply through the kindness he carried in every interview, let us know your favorite memory of him in the comments below. Give this video a like if his passing touched your heart, and subscribe for more heartfelt tributes to the icons who shaped our lives. Sam gave us decades of wonder on screen. The least we can do is remember him with the same warmth he gave us.